Well, if the first match was the fuse being lit, then I'm telling you, fireworks are about to go off here. Live from the Anaheim Convention Center, we're up to our second match of our Overwatch League 2022 playoffs. And this one is going to be a head-to-head rehash of rivalry between Eastern Region rivals, Matthew.
Yeah, and I totally agree with everybody taking the Shanghai Dragons in the series. Obviously, historically, a fantastic team outside of Season 1 in the Overwatch League. But I actually think the Hangzhou Spark is a team that, when you look at teams that potentially could cause upsets, right? You know, Guxue on the Winston, Shy on the Sojourn, like, you know, putting players in their best roles, you know, best heroes, like comfort picks, and they just have insane mechanical skill. I think they're a team that could really be a sleeper pick.
I mean, this is the same Hangzhou Spark that gave us an incredible 5-map series against the Los Angeles Gladiators in the mid-season madness, a team that really made a deep run in that bracket. It was a great time for them, a great metagame for them to shine. Things started to take a turn for the worse, though, as we moved into Summer Showdown and Countdown Cup. That's when the Sparks started to find themselves foundering just a little bit more. This team, though, like you mentioned, a huge roster, gigantic team, so many players that can be rotated in, and so many specialists that are waiting for their chance to take to the stage when the meta suits their best heroes. And you've already hinted at seeing Guxue, someone who we haven't seen much of lately, right? Bernard has been in at main tank for this Hangzhou Spark team, and they had to get through the play-ins. It was a 3-0 win against the Chengdu Hunters, but that game, both teams were throwing haymakers. This Spark has to hope that now is the time, the right time for them to peak, because going up against the Dragons is going to be quite the task indeed. Let's not waste any time, Matt. Let's jump into this. Let's welcome to the stage here at the Anaheim Convention Center, the Hangzhou Spark.
And I think this is going to be a good meta for the Spark. Is it good enough to beat the Dragons? I don't know, but I think if you were looking at, you know, players on heroes we know they can excel at, I think you have a really good shot with the players that the Spark is going to roll out here today.
We talked about a lot of the metrics in that last match, I feel, that made Hardy so successful, playing the Winston, coming in a main tank there. And one thing we really pointed out was his survivability, right? The fact that he's able to play up against these these Reaper-based compositions and still find success. That's definitely going to be something we're going to be looking out for on the side of the Spark here, because Guxue currently holds the title for the highest time alive as a Winston player and the fewest deaths in the entire league coming in to these playoffs. He has got to come alive here and stay alive in many of these fights to have that big impact.
And I think you're really looking at Guxue and Shy. Like, if you're going to turn this series in favor of the Spark, you're going to have to see it from the Winston and the Sojourn that most likely you're going to see from this team. They have all the mechanical skill that you could need to take it to a team like the Dragons. It's just the Dragons, you know, are going to come in as a, you know, well-oiled machine, right? They're going to be, you know, on the same page. They rarely make mistakes. Can the Spark play up to that level? The scary part with the Spark is sometimes we see that, sometimes we don't. Which Spark are you going to get here today?
And genuinely, if you want to look at previous results for this team, you know, spoilers, they haven't been exactly compelling against the Shanghai Dragons. You could probably throw that script out a little bit here, as we have a pretty significant shift in metagame. One thing that Eastern Overwatch fans have been treated to frequently is this matchup of Sojourns, right? Lip versus Shy. Either one of them can take the game over at the drop of a hat. I've got to be honest with you, we are dealing with a championship caliber team on the other side of the stage, so the Hangzhou Spark had better be ready for the Shanghai Dragons.
So the Dragons, we know, are tough for anybody to deal with. And I feel like a little bit of a, do you want to say like a chip on their shoulder, so to speak? I feel like they've come in with not, like, everybody's picking the Gladiators, you know, Seoul Dynasty's a pretty, you know, hot pick. The Shock, I feel like the Dragons have gone a little bit under the radar to where, you know, maybe they want to come in and put together a really good showing, let everybody know that they're still the real deal.
Look, I think that probably has a fair bit to do with the dominance that the Seoul Dynasty in sort of more recent history have been able to bring into this region. Shanghai, though, you know, despite maybe some rockier periods in that sort of in the Countdown Cup, have been really strong. I think, you know, you look back over their records and losing to Guangzhou and Philadelphia, sort of in back-to-back games there at the sort of end of September. Not the most auspicious signs for this team. But no one, even the people that are the lowest on this particular team are going to deny the caliber of players on this particular roster, right? Between Fate and Void, you have a lot of options here. Fleta has always been incredibly reliable, and the backline of this team is just quite exciting, right? I think a lot of people are looking at Izayaki and going to be asking the question, all right, how well does he develop? How well does he adapt? He's a veteran player in the league now. You're putting Fleta presumably in a position, maybe to play Reaper. You feel confident about that. The guy is so reliable. The guy's so consistent. And that's what you really need from Reapers, right? Just not to get blown up at the start of fights here. Does he have to pop off and have these like legendary moments on Reaper? No, he doesn't. He just needs to be a consistent force in these fights and capitalize maybe when someone like Lip opens the way.
And I think if you're the Spark, like the path to victory here is probably what? Shy plays a game in which he can kind of like neutralize Lip in the Sojourn matchup. And then you have Guxue just make it so difficult for, Izayaki in the backline of the Shanghai Dragons, which allows like Alfie and the rest of the crew to play a little bit safer, a little bit more, up on the carts and objectives and use that Reaper as a real big damage source.
That is assuming, of course, if these teams are subscribing to the same theory on the best way to play right now, which you probably suggests that they do. I don't really think the Dragons have been a team that have always opted to go for wacky stuff. I think that when this team looked strongest this year was actually, during Huayu's stint, playing a lot of their Genji on this team. That was very, very, very strong for them and very, very scary. This is your reigning champions, the Shanghai Dragons, who, like many teams, have had to contest a lot of big meta changes as the years gone by. And they've really weathered the test of time in that regard. So there's a lot of reasons to sort of pick them as, I can't believe we're saying like an outside chance here. It's 18 wins and 6 losses, right? The Dynasty have 19 and 5. So realistically, they're one game behind the leader in this Eastern region. Should be expecting them to bring their best here. And I guess everyone looking at Hangzhou going, okay, you've got a different main tank. We've got a different tank player helming this roster now than we sort of had in more recent history. Is that a difference maker? Guxue, the Primal Blade, as he's known, can he have the impact? Can he make the difference? I mean, his opposite number is a true veteran of the league in Fate.
Right. I would say, though, like, if you're looking at, in terms of playstyle, you would probably categorize, like, Fate and Fleta in more of, like, a conservative, like, safer playstyle when you look at, like, the Reaper and Winston players, where, can they play, like, if the game gets ratcheted up to a really fast pace, right, and the Spark are really pushing them to another level, can they play at that level of aggression and pace? Because, like you mentioned, I think the best point we've seen from the Dragons when we've seen Who Are You in, Who Are You is another big-time playmaker to put next to Lip, right, especially when he's on the Genji, and really can, open things up for himself. Fleta, I think, is more of he can play everything at such a high level, and not as much like the playmakers maybe like from a few seasons past.
And I guess we're going to get an answer to the question in this matchup. Like, what degree is there wriggle room in this sort of 5-hero composition, right? Looks like most teams seem to be in agreement that this is just absolutely the way to go. Both teams coming out mirror compositions again. Sojourn, Reaper, the Winston with the Kiniko, and of course Lucio. Over to the Spark to opt to take the high ground position to start with here, hoping to give Shy some really nice sight lines to find an opening.
Yeah, and Disruptor shot from Shy onto one side to try and force him to the other, and Guxue already in the window. Oh, that is a slide up to the high ground and a headshot right in Shy's face.
You just don't do that.
2 kills from Lip.
That's
insane.
That doesn't happen. I mean, you really expect a lot of Sojourn players to bide their time and and let their Winston go in first, but Lip is essentially leading the charge and absolutely pummels Shy.
I mean, just Lip, wow, with a solid 4K there in the feed to kick things off. 4 from Lip, 1 from Fleta, as the point goes over to the Dragons first.
That is disgusting. Shy, again, the kind of player that you expect Hangzhou to really try and use as their secret weapon here. Lip gets in his face and says, the court belongs to me, buddy. Great way to make a statement early here. Again, not so subtly, to the high ground goes Alpha Yi, joined by Guxue. Lip again maintaining a little bit of an off angle here and is sitting in a relatively safe pocket. Now as Fate just wants to disengage for the time being, as Lee J got a little low in that middle pillar. Shy's able to find Fleta though.
Yeah, that's a huge pick off, and this is what you want to see if you're a Spark fan. You know, Gushui get right in Liv space, make a play.
Very early Kitsune rush there from Izayaki. Soundberry also combined with it. Looks like these teams are trying to use those ultimates in conjunction early and often just to make sure they have the durability to back the haste buff up. Hangzhou are going to try for one of their own, but Super Rich is busy sipping his tea in spawn. No chance to build up that barrier yet.
Oh yeah, Gushui, the Primal Rage, who's trying to make a play for Legion God. He actually ends up getting Izayaki, as I believe he teleports right to him, and he's going to get lit.
That's two, the Primal Blade, that's why they call it that. Somehow able to find an inordinate number of kills from an ability in Overwatch 2 that really is used for disruption and sowing discord among ranks. Gushui, though, incredible juggling prowess displayed. And the Spark are going to get back in. They give up a lot of percentage in order to do this, though.
Yeah, it's still like, even though they flip the point, you're going to see more players come in here for the Dragons, because you have the Reaper, you have both supports, and it's just Gushui on the point right now.
Guy making the play here, overclock used. Dragons pulling their heads back inside. Do not want to expose themselves to this, but Feta has no choice. Shy rounds the corner, puts one right between the eyes, and now Fate really wants to just try and buy some time. Izayaki to the high ground here, Lips able to find Shy, so the Sojourn threat is down, but the Dragon's a little undermanned in order to have a full takeover of the point, and Izayaki doesn't have Swift Step for now. He'll play safe around the corner. He has very limited options about where to go.
As Fate just stays within his range, gives him an exit there. As Shanghai, they'll have both support ults here, Mitch, in their Death Blossom. I think this is their opportunity to flip the point back. You're going to get pretty close to tying this game up with a Spark.
Let's see if Shanghai have that same bloodthirst as the Spitfire did. Looks like, yes, they are going to lead with both those support ultimates here. Alpha Yi staved off very quickly. The Spark might just opt to give this up here, especially losing Gushui now. Hard to stall a point out like this when so many support ultimates come into play.
Yeah, they have to. It was a nice attempt there from the Spark. They actually have Gushui jump down and put a bubble right on top of Alpha Yi as he's trying to use that Death Blossom inside of the Kitsune Rush, but nothing home there. Not able to connect with anything. And also a really nice play from Legion God. With that bubble, like splitting players off, still able to connect with everybody with the sound barrier.
They're trying to start the fight off on the Dragon's terms here, but it gets just clobbered by Shy. Primal Rage there from Gushui again, gonna make it hard yet. Again, it finds another kill. Legion God going down. The Dragons get to 99 though. Hangzhou want to hold on to what they have left as they're in a win position here. Now they're back at 64 and counting for them. It's a long road to hope.
You see Gushui wanted to put that pressure and take out Izayaki, but didn't want to go right into the Reaper and still able to take him out and get out with his life as pushing on forward. Spark getting aggressive, and this is what I feel like they can really excel at against this Dragon. Taking the fight to the Dragons, make the Dragons be reactionary, not kind of take fights on their terms. I think that's where the Spark can see success.
Hangzhou support ultimates are out of phase though. It's either Beat or Kitsune Rush, and never both of them in this game so far, owing to Super Rich dying early in that first fight. Okay, that was Gushui's start to the last fight. He dives in on Lim, and Izayaki's already going to be felled there by that to stop the shot. Let her find very little value from the Death Blossom sound barrier owing to that in a big way. And Hangzhou just happen to have that come up at the right time. They're in charge now, and the Dragons are going to be forced back. Shanghai, again, the way they're playing these fights, Matt, right, using both their support ults at the same time, in theory, I guess, less opportunities to have these explosive team fights with extra durability or haste.
Yeah, but and so what you also saw there in that first round, like, think about every time you saw Gushui use like the Primal Rage, right? Like, it's kind of been a thing historically in Overwatch where he's been so good with that Winston ultimate. I can think of like at least 4 kills he got during that first round with that Winston ultimate, which is usually used to just kind of stall, where nothing really on the Shanghai side of things with Fate, where I think that's going to be really difficult for them to deal with this high-tier Winston play from Gushui.
And again, to what degree is like Super Rich's shots from downrange, the Cheerios, helping out in that kill? It just looks like Gushui annihilated Lit so quickly. You couldn't ask for a better pick-off there, and a great way to start the fight. A really high-arcing jump there as well to give the rest of his team time to get in position. Beautiful opener. Master Winston play here from Gushui.
Alpha Yi, he gets really low, so that's where they have to back up. And now the dive is going to come in from the Dragons.
Teru at range here, trying to play safe as he possibly can. Down the pit goes Gushui. He'll be able to join the rest of his team in just a moment here. A little bit in disarray are the Spark. They try and group up in the right side room here, but the Dragons are posturing further forward. They see Teru, but they can't get to him, and that buys enough time. Shy is able to take Fate down. Now again, the initiator is off the table for the Dragons.
And I really like the way the Spark played that. They move into that room, and you don't want to actually just send the Winston in to go kind of head on into the Reaper. And you're just kind of stuck in no man's land, right? Fader's just kind of like stuck in the middle of nowhere on the point. Doesn't want to go in, can't really kind of stay there, not even making an attempt to actually get the point for Shanghai at the start. Puts them in a really tough spot.
It's in a rush to the point here for the Dragons, but when they play the point, they step out of that. Spark put one of their own, they'll be able to play on the point with this ultimate. Flutter force back there, Wraith walks away, and the door shut in his face. Care of a disruptor shot. Doucheway drops down, health pack. May not be enough to keep him up, but the sound barrier sure will. Good timing from Super Rich here as the Dragons still struggling to find purchase on the point, finally flip it in their name.
And they backed off of it there for the Spark. I actually thought they could have used that sound barrier and really sort of juggle the point, where maybe you have Doucheway just jump back in with the Primal Rage. He's going to use the Primal Rage there, player down.
Going for the kills here, Doucheway.
Everybody's so low, though.
Able to slip away, and somehow Doucheway comes up with 2.
He is so good, bro.
Lee Jae Gon gets limp from limp. His extremity is used as a club. Now as Doucheway looks to follow up on that scary display. Hangzhou flipped the point back. Doucheway gets out alive because, of course,
dude,
here we go.
His Winston is just next level, man. Like, may not see it in a bit, but it's still, he just has such a mastery over that Primal Rage. That allows him to flip the point after a lot used by both teams.
Well, the clocks from both sides here. Both Sojourners trying to peer in for those picks, and Super Rich is down first. Hangzhou control the point here, but they might have to rely on Alpha Yi's Death Blossom if they can get him in position for it. Lip again, very slippery, hard to catch, and that Suzu's a second too late from Teru.
They finally do get a flip here as they'll take out Shy as he's just gonna existent for a little bit. But this is also like, this should have been percentage in theory, right? Mitch, it should have already been just going over to Shanghai, right? Like, Spark had about like 50 or something. Like, Doucheway able to use that Primal, flip it, gives them about an extra like 15% or maybe a little bit more. It could be big later in the game, right? Just having that extra time already banked for the Spark.
Shanghai back to the point here. Perhaps want to try and play around a Kiriko ultimate on the point itself. Pleasantries exchanged by the Reapers here. Flutter forced to get away. Here comes both Kitsune rushes into a Maelstrom of Madness, and Alpha Yi comes out with 3. He explodes forward. Reminds me of the Beyblade days of old. Lays waste to the Dragons.
Okay. And I think Lee Jae Gon was going for the sound barrier there, and I'm not sure he got it off. Take a look at this replay here. So, yeah, Lee Jae Gon tries to beat her and not able to get it off. That is huge there from Alpha Yi.
There's just no saving anybody on your team when you have that hasted Reaper. Ulti.
And the Spark now have their own sound barrier, and they're going to end up with a Primal Rage out of this. They could steal map 1.
Super Rich here trying to make sure he can get a good barrier. Doesn't have to worry about the shield breaking it up now. Here it is. Beat is thrown down. The Spark going to go forward at 97%. The Dragon's not going to have a chance to get test here. Death Blossom from Flutter. It gets the kill on Shy at the very least here. And overtime has been secured. Doucheway can't quite break through the Reaper here. So he turns back to ward Fate away from the point. It's going to be 4 players for now for the Hangzhou Spark trying to hold on. Fate being topped up here, and someone being forced out to the side. Teru able to get away, but Doucheway gets caught amongst the massive Shanghai Dragons, clutching at a chance to stay alive in his first map. They flip the point, and they're going to come out on top in this fight. What a crucial one to win here for the Dragons.
And Flutter gets, Wraith in, pushes in, and he's going to die.
He overextends. The Spark, though, not in a position to capitalize all that quickly. They'll try and be fast about this if they can.
Oh, they're going to try. I mean, you're going to use Overclock and try and get right in there.
The Dragons have a Kitsune Rush available here. Overclock from Lip could be around Ender. Fate very, very low here. Force back. Here's the Kiriko ultimate, and Lip goes forward now. Where are the targets? Alpha Yi! Oh my gosh! You can't be serious! The Dragons are ready to contest that. And Teru and Shy both are correct. The Dragons, at the end of their round, are unable to touch the point. That's Charlie Niner.
And look, I would not have picked the Spark to win this series. I think Shanghai, with what they've displayed over the course of the whole season, but I think you kind of see what I was laying out at the beginning of the series, where you get Doucheway on the Winston with Shy on the Sojourn and Alpha Yi playing this Reaper just in the mix. You put players on some of their best heroes, and they can really set the pace against this Shanghai team. And they're dangerous, man. The Spark steal map 1.
Scary stuff. We knew this would be the time for the Spark to show their best work with Gushue at the helm. They look unstoppable so far. Shanghai need to double down and find a way to answer the big, burly Simian threat that currently looms over them.
This is the absolute highest tier Overwatch that you really can get.
Form inside the Hangzhou Spark, they clear the point, they get it. 70% is Bernard crashes through two to get the eliminations.
Shy on the Sojourn.
Dude, thank you, Cat.
Putting up numbers. Finding 4 members in that fight.
Shy is a one-man army.
Finds Fit, Blade pulled out immediately. Finds Prophet, finds Smurf, Architect.
Huge.
Picking up 4 eliminations with the Blade itself. Nano does go in, he comes up with 2 quick kills. Izayaki and Lip both falling. Gets a third. For the Hangzhou Spark, they can absolutely contend with the best of the best.
Map 1 has told us that there can be no doubt about it, but Gushue, man's got hands. 10 final blows, 3 deaths in that first map, leading his team in a metric that you rarely see Winston players lead in. At times, maybe you'll see him be very much a key part of fights, but I'd love to know how many of those kills came from Primal Rage. I'd say almost half of them Stunning work.
Yeah.
Again from Gushue here. And look, look at the Dragons, right? Incredible players, seasoned veterans. Fate's not that guy. He is not that high-flying player that takes Winston's skill expression necessarily to another level. That's not been his role. It's not been his job. It's not been what's expected of him. The Spark just have that to fall back on here, and what a great opening here in this series. Shanghai down a map already.
Yeah, and there's Shanghai for their map selection will end up taking us to King's Row. And does that change anything we see in terms of the meta? I'm gonna kind of go and say I believe it doesn't. I think we're gonna kind of see this mirror matchup unfold over the course of a lot of the maps throughout the entire weekend. Maybe, quite frankly, all of them. But King's Row, definitely a staple, a just kind of like home field for just about every team in the league at this point.
It's been in the game for a long time. Definitely one of the most iconic maps. I will say, one that we don't always see in metas that have more options maybe for tank play. Don't always see Winston be the go-to here. But again, as defenders, you have natural high ground advantage that you can use to your advantage. And as attackers, you can absolutely use Winston to try and gain control of that high ground and transition into it. So not out of the question that we see that again here. And you have to feel like the Spark are favored in any situation they can bring the Simian Scientist into the fold.
I would just believe that if you were going to see some different things, you probably would have saw some adjustments in terms of the lineups, right? Like if you were going to see some type of like Sigma play or, Zarya play from Shanghai, you probably would have saw Void come again. Sure. Same on the other side for, Hangzhou, like Bernard. But I think with the way these rosters are constructed and with no subs going into this game, I think you're going to see more of the same, where the Winston can still, he can kind of control the high ground, but he can at least threaten, right, and kind of like position for it.
Tough to defend with Winston comps in general, right? I think it's something we observed even in the previous series where the Spitfire were the better team by at least half for almost the entire series. And even at times they find themselves, trying to engage as defenders and getting blown up pretty quickly. So there's always that level of lethality that, a defending Winston has to be very aware of when he tries to drop into a composition that is shuttling a Reaper at speed. Terry here.
Yes.
Pardon? Okay, Izzyaki might have had to Suzu himself there and might be able to swift step away. Interesting little opener there as both Kiriko's using that wall climb to get info and poke a little.
Also can get out of harm's way with that swift step, right? Can just TP right out. Oh, and that's going to be Shy getting that first kill, getting the better of Lip there as they're just trying to march on in. And this is where Gushue can do his thing, get aggressive.
And again, first kill for defenders here. They can drag this out, Matt. They can make it hurt for the Dragons, who have almost lost an entire minute already. Passed in a flash.
I'd say as well, I think this is really good that the Spark start things off on D here, right? Because you take that map number one, any team, right? Regardless of how confident they are, like a little bit of doubt will creep in a map like that. Teru's still going this point. Lip is so low already.
Teru essentially says he's
going to steal this half. You're in a good spot with the Spark.
Teru, I think, says he's playing with house money because of his ability to swift step away, right? So he finds like a couple headshot connections there, or at least puts like a mad heal pressure down on the Dragons early. That puts his team at a significant advantage. And the risk isn't that great for him, right? He can dash back to the rest of his team, rejoin them before the fight begins in earnest.
My ultimate is almost ready.
Once they get the Reaper out of the equation, Gushue just goes. Able to get access the players in the backline, the supports. Teru not going to be able to play on that flank.
Yeah, he is.
Side of that.
Guy will not be denied. Kitsune rush for both sides on the point here. Soundberry is though being held in reserve for the time being. No blood drawn yet in this fight. Shy holding, of course, swap sides. This has to feel like this favors Hangzhou now if they can force the Dragons to play out of this choke. They've had to go for Lee Jae on Soundberry here, but what do they get as a result of that extra durability, Matthew?
Might not be anything as Gushue trying to make a play. I believe this is Yaki up on the high ground. They know Fled is still back here as well, so you have two more players still split off here. They know Fled is probably around here somewhere, but it doesn't look like they're actually going to go look for him. He's just in the middle of nowhere.
Coming into this game, you really have to reassess your expectations, I think, for how this match plays out. Now you've seen what we've seen. Shanghai are down to less than half of their time to attack with here. They do have primal rage, but they've lost Lip again at the start of the fight. Lip opened the series with this absolutely harebrained assault on Shy, just running into him, getting the headshot. But now it's all been about Shy, and that sound barrier really may not even have been necessary.
I think you would have wanted that sound barrier for this next fight, or just the threat of it holding you coming up, right? I know Overclock, Death Blossom, Primal. You're not going to have anything there to hold on, but I tell you what, I mean, this is about as good of a start to the series as you could have asked for if you're a Hangzhou Spark fan.
Teru heading back to the rest of his team after his initial forays, once more probing for weakness. Wraithwalk used here, and yeah, there's that Primal Rage making it impossible for Shy to get away. So Fate gets one on the board there. Shanghai have the ultimate advantage to work with, and looks like the Spark may not be in a great spot to get use of it right now. That is that Kitsune Rush, of course.
They haven't been on the point the entire time. Are you going to be able to come back and challenge this again if you're the Spark?
No reason not to.
It looks like you're actually... Yeah, it looks like you're...
Where was that go? Where'd that come from?
Able to take him out. And he was like in the choke and then TP'd out.
That's insane. Okay, the good start for the Dragons here. Here come your Kitsune Rushes. Alpha Yi standing on the paved road as his Flatter wants to push forward. That Death Blossom is devastating under these conditions. All too easy for the Dragons to finally pick the Spark apart, but prior to that, it was anything but.
Yeah, and I mean, the kill on the Shy there from Izayaki is massive. I believe he just kind of like pushes forward and actually is able to take him out with a headshot and then TP out. But I think Super Rich using that sound barrier. Like, imagine that sound barrier there. That's a much closer fight. If you're the Spark. Yeah, let's take a look at this. I don't even think he's really aiming for him. I think it's like Super Rich and other players coming through the choke.
And I feel like it's actually the start and end of fights where Kiriko finds that value, because Winston bubbles really make it hard for you to do that. You're better off just healing for most of the time. But this initial probing, right, or this like at the end of fights, just sort of throwing knives, seems to find some pretty impressive purchase from these Kiriko players.
That was sound barrier used by Shanghai to try and keep everybody alive there as they were putting pressure right before point one. And Guxue ends up using the Primal, and he ends up taking out Lee Jae Gun there towards the end. So he'll take that trade any day, I think, if you're the Spark.
Lip trying to slip away there as he hears the overclock from his opposite number. Shy, disruptor shot here. A lot of people have to play inside that one. I mean, rock meet hard place.
Right? Looks like a disruptor shot just on one side of the doorway, a Death Blossoming Reaper on the other side. No options to survive there if you're the Shanghai Dragons. So, and they don't, when they push up, they're trying to like get a lot more cart progress than this. They don't even really make it clear around that first corner.
Not a great spot for the Dragons to be in. They've had their successes at times here, right? You're capping the point, and then that sort of next fight. A good opening from Lip. He's been pretty quiet outside of that so far, Matt, so this is absolutely necessary. Shy's able to trade it back. They've lost Lee Jae gone. Where's that impetus going to come from now? No speed boost available for the Dragons. They're trying to peer in and find just picks here. Lip got to be topped up as he's getting put under extreme scrutiny by Guxue there, but Fate deals with Super Rich and Shy deep in the enemy backline. Great peel, great awareness from Fate there to salvage the fight for the Dragons.
It's Lip, even without the overclock, comes up with 3 there. Just massive plays from Lip. Is Shanghai going to get really close to taking this second checkpoint? We're probably going to end up in OT. And Super Rich has this sound barrier,
Primal,
which is going to be the main difference going into this fight. Yeah, and Primal too.
Overclock from Lip. Can he find an opening at the start of the fight? Looks less than likely here, but the Rush is going to charge the Dragons forward here, try and close the gap, take the space away from people like Shy. Primal Rage now coming out from both sides, distributing these Spark plays a bit more sparsely across the card. But Fate is low on health, he needs to get away. It's going to take a while to top him up. Izayaki going to work with those ministrations, but he's only at half health as he tries to contest here. Death Blossom for Flatter is going to be huge. He needs to find a way to get in here, but they've already lost Fate. Is this going to be enough? Sound barrier there for the Dragons. As Flatter's at least able to find Super Rich here. Alpha clinging on. He's able to find another as Flatter, and Teru is able to slip away at the last moment, but Flatter knew where he'd turn up. Shotgun to the back of the head, and now Alpha has to try and stand and trade blows with Flatter. It's about buying some time here, but in overtime, the Dragons will scrape into the last phase of the map.
And that is why you love watching the Shanghai Dragons play, and you love their chances in a long playoff like this. I mean, just to contest the payload and wait out the sound barrier there used by the Spark, I mean, just perfect the way they just kind of juggled it between the responsibility, the Lucio, the Winston, the Reaper, and then just building up towards their own sound barrier and able to take it. And that's another shot there from Lip to open things up.
Not even the slightest twitch from him there as he sets off that railgun. Smooth like butter from Lip. And now the Spark will be stuffed back inside their spawn. This is a lot of ground to be gained by the Dragons, who still have some time to work with here. And another overclock for Lip. Hangzhou need Shy to make a retort here in some way, shape or form.
Yeah. Big time. I mean, we've seen just Lip go unanswered here. That's going to be Shy popping his overclock as well.
Lip, he's deep behind enemy lines here. Disruptor shot makes it harder to find decent sight lines though. And in the meantime, Flutter gets picked off by Shy. Kitsune rush now for the Hangzhou Spark and a sound barrier that they'll surely hold in reserve. There'll be one fight left for the Shanghai Dragons here. They're going to have to hope they can build a sound barrier going into it.
Look, I think they're going to be able to do so, but are they even going to be able to make it back? 10 seconds left here, and Gushui's going to have Primal. Nice disruptor shot, just slows down Fate and takes some of his health away.
5 seconds left. It's a long way to get back to the cart. Look how far forward, Matt. The Spark have been able to push, and they're trying to make sure the Dragons can't slip through. No chance for Shanghai to get back to the cart. Hangzhou astutely moving the battle line up, making it so hard to slip through.
I really like the decision by the Spark. They push up, they realize how much time is left on the clock. I think it's up. Let us switch over to the Sombra there just to probably go invis, try and get a touch. But disruptor shot, Winston, right? A lot to uncloak the Sombra. Stop the Sombra from getting towards the payload, and the Primal there to use as well. Gets popped at the end. Pretty good defense here from the Spark. Honestly, with how things are going at the start, you almost are probably pretty happy with that as the Dragons, right? Because it was not looking good for a very long time. I mean, you were getting spawn camp, for a few minutes there on your offense.
Yeah, look, I think they salvage a potentially devastating situation to something that they can work with, right? They can start to cycle some of their ultimates effectively on defense and make sure to keep Fate topped up as he will try and dip in, contest the point here. Then they might be okay. And there's a lot to fear from the Hangzhou side of things, right? Gushui is just such an expert at identifying ways to get into the fight while still giving himself enough breathing room to back up, get healed up. Kiriko needs to be relatively close to her intended target of healing because it is travel time, right? And obviously her healing can be obstructed, so there's always a risk there if you're Teru of trying to stay close to the diving Gushui that you put yourself in harm's way. We saw Teru as well. Start the last round, Matt. Try and go for some pokes here. We'll see if he tries to use that wall climb again to open things up.
Really aggressive play from Teru on the Kuriko. So, see if it's matched by Izayaki. Izayaki seems to be playing way safer around the rest of the team.
Great damage on Gushui by the Dragons here. They do top him up though. Both teams take a quick breather now, but ground has been gained in net by the Spark. They're able to play around the statue and close here to the hotel. Lip's sideline now is very narrow. Gushui able to play quite closely here, but he's still going to be staved off once more. Fate reasserts his position on the ball. Oh, Teru! He just dives in! Izayaki falls foul of a kunai to the head. Teru, I think, used Gushui to dive into that
Just
fight.
where he was, yeah.
The guy is absolutely unhinged.
He is deep. And what does he do? He starts fighting and battling a little bit. He uses the Suzy for even more invuln on himself. And then gets a kill and just TVs on out.
That's despicable stuff.
Way different. Yeah, I mean, way different use of the hero, right? Than you kind of see Izayaki potentially playing as. But very effective, it looks like, thus far.
Well, hey, your biggest issues with your kunai are travel time and damage fall on. You can answer both of those by closing the gap. Teru, previously prolific Genji main player. Also a lot of flex support in his background. Never forget his 5k, 6k Dragon Blade I think we saw. That's a great opener though. Look at this. The Dragons are unseated so easily here. They look uncomfortable in dealing with the thrusts here from the Spark.
My ultimate is charging.
Teru's able to get sneaky right around those corners. The headshot puts anybody at basically one-shot range, right? Outside of probably the tank. And the rest of the team can just kind of dive in. If Shanghai commits on the Teru and uses their abilities to do so, he just TPs on out.
A lot of road work happening here. Fate though takes the fast lane into Shy's domain. Able to clean him up pretty comfortably here, and Fledder will end the fight. Again, I think in total, Kiriko and Lucio have pretty similar output across the course of a map, right? Izayaki actually has less damage than Lee Jae-gon, for example. But your damages, Kiriko, can quite often come in these bursts, right? You obviously have higher burst damage potential, that sort of pseudo insta-kill potential getting out close to the knives. Sometimes you still find these key kills or key headshots on like a close Winston that skew the tank fight heavily in your favor. In a
It's kind of how like the Sojourn railgun shots, right, are so impactful. You know, hitting them at range, whether it's kill or not. I mean, look how low Fate gets there.
Yeah, Shy doesn't even wait for that second rail shot to charge up completely from his overclock. He knows he has Fate dead to rights. Pummels him with a headshot instantly. Again, as tanky as Winston is, all his defenses get laid pretty bare once he eats a face full of these rail shots. And the Spark are well on the way here to another checkpoint. There is a sound barrier for both teams here. Kitsune Rush is not on the table, so bear that in mind. It's going to be pretty similar ult profiles outside of Fate having the primal rage.
Sound barrier from both sides, and Fleta goes in actually. Thought about maybe using his own Death Blossom, but that's going to be Alpha already using his.
Possibly he was waiting out the sound barrier a little bit there. It was pretty preemptive from Alpha to dive in with that Reaper ultimate. He's able to find one kill, at least assist in the elimination of one player there, but a lot of that damage went into that overhealth.
So they have to be a little bit careful. You see, like they thought maybe like Teru could actually have like played for maybe a sneaky kind of wrap
Never
around
counted
for
out.
the payload there. Yep, because he could just TP right on out if he gets in trouble, where you'll have that Kitsune Rush from the Hangzhou Spark. So this could be an opportunity where, you know, Fate's up on the high ground. You get a good alleyway here with your Reaper and make an impact.
Great boot. Fate now has to go back to his backline and maybe instead peel. He gets redirected, and the Spark were ready for this. That whole time, it looked like Alpha Yi got in position on the high ground. He actually denied Fate away from playing from that balcony entirely just by walking up on him, and then he dropped down. Great way to open the fight. And the Dragons didn't have Kiriko ultimate up. They were at a distinct disadvantage.
And I love the route that Alpha Yi takes, like you mentioned, right? They rush down that staircase and like in that alleyway, and Alpha Yi actually comes from the opposite side. So he gets the effects from it on the opposite side, but there's so much happening that like in front of the Shanghai Dragons, it makes it pretty difficult to like turn and focus now on the Reaper, who's like the real benefit of that, like how we heard Backbone talk about in that interview, and focus him down, which allows Alpha Yi to just, you know, do his thing for free.
So Fleta realizing he needs to sort of do what Alpha Yi does, right? And assert himself in maintaining that defensive high ground position. Super Rich gets cut short there as Lip sees him skittering by and meets him with a headshot. Alpha Yi now is just not really sure what's going on there. Just trying to make sure he gets eliminated as quickly as possible, and Teru will follow soon after.
Look, man, Shanghai looks awesome when Lip is able to get like 4 kills in a fight. You know, outside of those, it's been pretty tough to get anything going. You're gonna have sound barriers for both teams. It's gonna be a Death Blossom available, but you know, Lip stops the push and stops everything going on for the Spark before they could even get something going there with that railgun shot.
He and Shy really evenly matched here, Matthew. Both have 11 charge shot kills. Shy 57%, Lip 61% charge shot accuracy. They are on even footing right now.
And honestly, like how I talked about at the beginning of the series, right? Like a path to victory for the Spark. I talked about that even matchup. I think if they're even, that is a win for the Spark.
Absolutely. They've got so many other secret weapons to rely on, like this one here. Death Blossom from Fleta. Sound barrier was there, though. Again, timing not favoring the Dragons. Both teams go for those Lucio ultimates. And now with these Kitsune Rushes out of phase from one another, we'll have a team use them to steamroll the other in many of these fights. This one is Hangzhou's, and they'll hold on to the Death Blossom going into the next one that can't. One fight away from the end of the map.
And you're going to be forced to fight on the goal, right? With where the payload is. So what is that? As Lip just comes out of the spawn. As a boop knocks Alpha Yi up, and then a shot with the railgun.
Yeah, it's a one-man band right now. Instantly cuts the threat from Hangzhou down in half at the start of that fight. Not much here Hangzhou can do except tread water and kind of wait for their fates to be met. Teru again, nice little pick, but doesn't mean much in the grand scheme of things. Hangzhou's time starting to run short.
Yeah, it's starting to get into a dangerous territory here, right? Where, you know, Izayaki has the Kitsune Rush, and then Fate has a Primal. I think if you're Hangzhou, you're looking at maybe just trying to get a really fast fight, get some of those ultimates out, and then come back with one really good attempt.
Shy forced to reposition there, sliding away. Disrupt the shot's thrown in his position, so his sidelines aren't great at the moment. He's caught in the middle. This fight still, he fights Lip. How? So much pressure coming from Fate, and yet Shy's able to draw a bead on his opposite number. What a huge way to win the fight without just smashing Q with your Kiriko ultimate. And now Alpha Yi wants to make this even worse. Waiting for a Death Blossom opportunity now. And he gets him. Izuyaki goes down. Huge opener there to the fight. And Hangzhou aren't done. The pedal stays on the gas right now. And Lip tries to float around that Winston bubble in the middle of the fight. But this is it. This is done. The Hangzhou Spark get it done. Taking their second map in this series.
When I was trying to lay out that path to victory for the Spark at the beginning of the series, Shy and Lip basically has to be a neutral battle, which we're seeing here. And you have to get that big time playmaking from Alpha Yi and Guxue. You're seeing it as well from Teru. And Shanghai just doesn't have an answer for that type of pace and the aggression that's coming out from the Spark. It's the Spark jump up 2-0.
Shy comes alive in those final moments there, ends up with 18 final blows. It is a titanic clash between Sojourn players, and Hangzhou win it out again. It's a 0-2 situation for the Dragons. They got a lot to ruminate on, but not much time. Stick around, the third map is coming right up.
Mic check. Good. My mic.
Sir, yes, sir.
Mine's good. That's chillin'. Oh, so loud.
나 마이크 체크 한 번씩 해보자. 이거 치오부터 말해봐.
마이크 체크.
나 게임한테처럼 해봐. 치오도 다시.
여기 형들 이 정도.
오케이.
Hey everyone, see it.
Mike, funny.
Yeah, I'm chilling, bro.
슈.
왜 기침 했는데 뭐라고 너무 했다 근데. 기침 한 개 너무 한 건데? 그러니까 한번 할 수 있지.
Hey, Dante, is there anyone around you to tell that one of the in-ears is not working?
Try unplugging it and replugging it in first. Better? What did he say? I can't hear you.
언제 씨 빨리 하고 싶다.
뭐야 그 이거 뭐였어?
You ready, Sam?
Yeah, man, I'm ready, bro.
Are you scared?
Yeah, I'm terrified.
아니 긴장되지도 않고 근데 아까 대화하는 거 프레드로스는 긴장되는데 막상 게임 안 지니까 괜찮아. 지금 현석이는 지금 어린 거 같은데? 너 어렵게 하고 있지 지금?
긴장은 안 됐는데 그냥 의아해 살짝.
그게 긴장이야 임마.
Please no one respond to Crimzo match chat.
Crimzo.
Let's go Lighthouse first.
무조건 등대어.
Get it out of the way.
오케이.
고잉인이다.
화이팅 해서라.
Let's go.
Good luck, guys. Watch out, Nano Echo. You're good.
Guys, watch out, Nano Echo.
Watch out.
Nano.
Watch out, Nano Echo.
Nano Echo.
Guys, watch out, Nano Yaki.
나 부르고 싶은 크게 불러줘. 나 지금 질풍가도 듣고 있으니까.
The story of a lifetime. About a man's lifetime story. Of how to find love within his lifetime.
Hey, who wrote this crap?
This year's best-selling novel, Listening to the Wind. Get ready for a fearless love.
London landed in LA for land. London landed in LA for land. London.
Yo, I'm hitting every shot.
You're a god, Dante.
I
You're actually
know.
the best Doompiece in the league.
I know. Like, actually, wait, tell me more. I know. I gotta make a Doom guide for Fearless after this.
Leave.
Nice, guys.
GG's, boy. Let's go.
Alright.
How do you do not?
Postseason perks are here. New community-designed Overwatch 2 cosmetics. Our skins for all heroes including Sojourn, Junker Queen, and Kiriko. And 3 for 3 perks are back. 3 League home and away skins for every 3 hours watched. Connect your Battle.net ID to your YouTube account and watch the perks pile up.
Don't miss the kickoff clash legendary team mix skins. The Seoul Dynasty Tiger skin is on sale now through November 15th for just 200 League tokens. That's right, that's that Luchador Reaper with that Seoul vibe, of course, to commemorate their success in one of those key tournaments. Pretty good looking one, actually. I do like the vibes, the gold. Neat.
Yeah, big wrestling fan. Love Luchador Reaper. It's a cool look. Hey, once this patch hits live, you may be able to get some real good use out of that Luchador Reaper. So you may be seeing him a ton on some of these maps. As Reaper has been a staple thus far. Winston, Sojourn, Kiriko, and Lucio so far today. And in this matchup, yep, that is the 12th seeded Hangzhou Spark. Mind you, we have 12 teams in the playoffs. Really taking it to the 5th seed Shanghai Dragons in a series where I think if you looked at the teams, obviously the Shanghai Dragons have had the better totality of the season, but with what you saw there for the first series and what this meta could be, you could tell this could be a very scary series if Hangzhou kind of showed up at some of their peaks for some of these players on these heroes. And that's exactly what we've seen in the first 2 matches.
This isn't the first time we've seen this from Hangzhou. It just doesn't happen all the time, right? Thinking back to mid-season madness, Hangzhou were able to leverage this kind of play really effectively. It was actually a metagame where a lot of otherwise top teams struggled because it involved a lot of this sort of more dive-oriented play style around Winston. This is absolutely Hangzhou's natural style, something that fits them very well. Gooshway, from Primal Rages alone on Oasis, got 6 final blows. These numbers are completely disproportionate to what you normally expect Winston to be able to do with that ability. We've harped on that a lot, though, with the Route 66 map pick by the Dragons here.
And I tell you what, Mitch, this is why it's so important for those, seeding weeks and regular season tournaments to be able to earn those league points, because, top 4, you get a bye, right? You're not in a situation like this if you're the Shanghai Dragons with a new meta going up against a team who's very scary, playing some of these heroes. That top 4 really paying off for some of those teams being able to sit and watch and then ultimately end up picking their opponent.
Yeah, no doubt about it. A lot of, information gathering going on from the teams waiting in the wings at the moment. I'm sure that, this definitely changes the calculus in terms of selection of opponent in a big way. Hangzhou now looking like one of the teams to beat in this kind of metagame map. Whereas the Dragons, again, we see a lot of their success come from different picks in the past. Fate, a very, very strong tank player who's weathered the onslaught of so many top, tank opponents in the past. But have we seen him climb to the same heights in specifically the Winston category as Goose Ray? No, not necessarily. Hard for him to have that same level of impact on these team fights.
Well, so we have seen Fate play the Winston at like a league best level, but in the past, right? In Overwatch 2 and 5v5, I think Gushui's play style, which is way more aggressive, pushing the pace, deep into the back line, right? Being a real disruptor, probably plays a little bit better than Fate's type of play style. As obviously the change to 5-on-5 and whatnot. So I think yes, I think both of the Winstons on both teams are just tremendous. I think it's just a play style difference right now.
I mean, Fate's not playing badly at all. He's having an excellent goal. It's just his style manifests so differently to Gooshway's, and Gooshway's able to find these higher highs in many of these moments where he just, think back to Oasis, man, where he is a losing fight. It's like a 3v5 or something, pretty hard to play into. He pops Primal Rage and all of a sudden his team have the point they're back in control and you go, what just happened?
Primal just is a completely different ultimate between the two teams right now, right? for Shanghai. It's a nice to have, right? Extends fights, dislodges people. For the Spark, it's resulted in a kill or two, right? Or leading to some of those kills, right? Where you can think Gushui kind of pushing Lee Jae-gon, at points there, on King's Row into a really difficult position, and he ends up getting taken out. So, just way different mechanics, I think, between those two players and these two teams right now.
And I think we need to talk about Shy still, even though Gushue has definitely excited us with his mechanics on that Winston. Shy in the head-to-head against Lip is winning out. If we want to use metrics like final blows or accuracy with those charged shots or kills that come as a result of those, not by much, mind you. Both these hit scan players are playing at, like, to quote you, league best levels here. Shy's just a little better when it counts.
And if you were the Spark, like, if you could have told the Spark at the beginning of the series, Shy is going to match Lip in the Sojourn battle, you would have taken that 100%. Like how the Des mentioned, Lip, potentially the best Sojourn player, not just in his region, but in the league. In Shy, we know he has those highs and capabilities. That's a disruptor shot. He actually gets lower than Teru with a headshot finishes him.
Again, for Teru, it's easier to line that up. The slowing effect of the disruptor shot means that he can actually lead his target a little bit easier, in theory. Or he just catches him with a wayward knife. Either way, that's right. But a headshot is still going to be pretty brutal at even sort of medium range like that. But if you can't depend on Lip to be the difference maker here in this Sojourn battle, right? Where else do you turn? Where else do you look on this Shanghai Dragon? Who else steps up and actually creates a disparity in role against their opposite number to help you across the line?
I mean, I think you got to look at Izayaki, and I think you got to look at Fate being more impactful, trying to get to that high ground and cause some problems.
Both Kiriko players have had a couple peaks, showing Teru is in the back line, for a spell at least. Quickly returning to patch Gushue up and get him back in the fight, but Gushue is extremely low. Yeah, as soon as Fletcher gets close enough, there's just no chance of keeping that Winston fighting fit.
Yeah, but Shanghai is going to have to back up, so you're probably going to get Gushue back into this fight before the next one kicks off. I think as well, dude, there's probably so much pressure on the Dragons right now, right? Knowing they're the 5th seed, knowing they're going up against our last seeded team, the 12th seeded Hangzhou Spark. Like, on offense right now, you start to, like, stall out a little bit, and that clock dwindles down, already being down 2-0. But that doubt starts to creep in.
Tsunair Rush comes up first for the Spark. Question will be how quickly they opt to make use of it. That's been answered now. Shy here trying to do a fake, goes into Primal, and he just juggles Shy up so Lip can pick him off. Clay Pigeon shooting here for Lip, and he's found 2 back-to-back kills on both DPS on the side of the Spark. Leaves him looking a little toothless for the rest of the fight.
Yeah, and I was gonna wonder, I was like, do you see them maybe try and fight this? Like, if Super Rich is able to get out with his beat and you can get the Primal on there and get players back in, but no, they lose Super Rich, they have to back out. So really good offense so far here from the Shanghai Dragons.
Something worth pointing out, Fate might not be finding kills with the Primal Rage, but he's sure as heck setting them up for Lip there. Such an easier shot for the Sojourn when the player is sort of floating in air for a time. Fate there nabs up that health pack. He's looking pretty good so far as a facilitator for the Dragons after a little bit of a slow start. The Hangzhou Spark, they've run into many of these ultimates pretty quickly. The one thing to worry about is the Dragons can layer these support ultimates.
Lip gets so low, and they're not going to be able to use the sound barrier to keep Lip up, and that's going to be layering both support ults on top of each other. That's terrible for the Dragons.
Yeah, so Gushue stays clear of the landing zone for as long as he possibly can, right? The haste is still very scary, but without Reaper to make use of that, to increase his fire rate, make him a true tank buster, it's so hard for the Dragons to get good value out of the Kiriko ultimate. Fate goes down now, and that hurts. God, it hurts so bad for the Dragons, Matthew. 2 critically important support ultimates used, and you lose the fight hard.
I gotta say, as well, great patience from Super Rich and Teru. Like, Gushue gets extremely low there, right outside that gas station, and they end up being able to hold on to sound barrier. Oh, and
take some time off.
That's a beautiful headshot there. Teru's really, showing us a new way to play Rico.
Well, if you're gold, it's actually the current way to play it, but I take your point. Really getting aggressive and getting a ton of value out of that 3 times headshot multiplier.
Can't believe you're throwing shade at your own.
I'm diving fine, thank you. Happy to expose myself on that one. Alpha catches Lee Jae-gon there though, and the Dragons now might be forced to play from inside that tunnel. They don't have the maneuverability to get themselves out of here. They're deep in enemy territory, and they've got nowhere to go.
Looks fade as, alright, so Flooded takes out Shy here. Is he going to be able to exit with his life or is he going to lose it? Oh, there, Leech got in there. Nice boops him back. So Flooded's going to exit with his life. You're not going to be able to make anything really out of this, though. I think Shy is going to be back already up on that high ground behind. As, it's been about 2 minutes plus you're stalled out of this door.
And Spark have held on to these ultimates for so long. They've not had to use them. Alpha E, though, won't have a chance to use that Death Blossom at all. As midway through that animation, it's not all invulnerable for the Reaper. Lip is able to find that kill. And Shy gets chased away here. Fate more than happy to probably use Primal just to chase, as the Spark did try and sheepishly disengage.
Shanghai should have an advantage here, though. Double support ults going into this fight where the Spark just have Primal. And they have their Death Blossom. I mean, Gushue, like, he's behind them right here. Really awkward spot.
The play here. A stall cart, save Primal maybe for buying time for Supers to return. Doesn't feel great either way. He's not really in a position to contest directly, and losing Terry here means just forget about it. Just forget about it. Tough one for Gushue. He really gets caught on the outside looking in there, Matthew.
Yeah, that was just, he gets like caught in the choke from the fight previously and never ends up making it back to his team. And then also they just don't even care Shanghai to go back and challenge it, try and make a play for him. So,
that's dangerous.
You can't lose anybody here. Yeah, Shanghai's starting to get rolling, his Lip starting to find these kills.
It's got to be the awareness from Super Rich that the Dragons are trying to push their advantage here and gain some extra ult percentage and also get the car closer to the corner early on. He's just sort of wall climbing on that pillar. It's very easy for Lip to pick him off. Someone of his caliber anyway. Nice little redirect there on Fate's dive. He's not in a great spot to make use of it here, and a big disengage from the Kitsune rush. DJ gone, fortunately, not opting to use the sound barrier. Might want it now, though, as Izuyaki's down to the Death Blossom.
Oh, as Flooded teleports, gets right on in, and everybody's already gone. We saw Carpe go with a little bit of a predictive Death Blossom that doesn't work out. That time you see how it can work out, where everybody gets aggressive behind the rush there for the Dragons, and the Death Blossom from Alfie just waiting on the other side.
Upside for the Dragons here, obviously, being able to maintain a sound barrier for this next engagement. Won't be a Death Blossom to answer it with, though, so I'd like to see them use it proactively here if they can. Force the fight where Kitsune Rush can't get value, but the Dragons are caught on the back foot here. The Spark get the exact engagement they want, where they want it.
Sit down, please.
Been kind of the story of the whole series, right? All these fights have been, fought on the Spark's turf, so to speak, where, or the Spark's pace. Lip actually takes out Shy there at the end. Dude, I tell you what, if Lip wasn't having the series he's having, which is actually
this game would be over.
This series, even down 2-up, yeah, we'd be done with this series by now. I mean, that's how good Lip has been on the Sojourn, just honestly getting these first picks.
Dragging his team, ticking and screaming here into a competitive showing on this third map of the series. Sound barrier there for Lee Jae gone. Gushue's Primal Rage here will tick down, and he won't find much for it. The overclock comes up at an opportune moment for Lip to punish Alpha Yi. There's a lot of space. Look at how they fan out towards the spawn doors here. No one's on the cart. One player on the cart right now, right? So they're able to get it close to this last cul-de-sac. And what do the Spark have left to try and mount a defense?
Nothing. I mean, they're just going to try and play for OT at this point. Fleta with the Death Blossom could just get everybody off of the car.
That's pretty big. The Sojourn plus a Lucio was enough to get the job done. Shanghai, they realize it, right? I think towards the start of that last phase, hey, we've got a great opportunity to set our battle lines really far forward, far further than the cart is, and make use of our long-range hit scan pressure from someone like Lip to get a lot of free push and make it impossible for the Spark to get fights on their terms. There's one fight right there, Matt, where you sort of pointed out. The Hangzhou Spark start at first, it's on their tempo, and looks really good. But after that, they really use up a lot of their resources and let the Dragons sneak in a map completion, albeit in overtime.
Now, I think that's kind of what the Spark, when you see that last part of the map in the timing on the clock, that's kind of what they're playing for, right? Is to just do not let Shanghai finish with any time on the clock. Finish in that OT where now the Spark, your kind of goal is like, hey, if we finish with any time on the clock, we have a chance to finish this series here.
Yeah, I guess, look, the fact that it's a pure escort map means that it doesn't hurt the Dragons that much to finish in overtime, right? They'll get an extension regardless. So, yeah, for them to be in a position where they can maybe tax Hangzhou's progress to the same degree, then they're going to be on even footing coming into overtime here. This is Lip. I mean, this is where things start to get out of hand a little bit. the spark as Teru's trying to make one of his classic sneaky plays, and Lip instantly shuts the door.
This is where they lost tons of time on defense here, where Gushui was just kind of hanging out behind enemy lines for a while. Same with Teru for a bit. Okay, so some Roadhog Junkrat action. Look, Roadhog, he got it quite good against this type of comp.
The last time I saw this was Kaluge, by the way, playing this on Oasis against the Wrecking Ball composition, and it worked. It worked really well. There's no Biotic Grenade, right, Matt, to punish this Roadhog, amongst other things.
You get so wrapped up in trying to like focus down the Roadhog that you realize like just kill him last. But you already see them switch off of it as it's a fun comp at the start. Maybe get a hook, get a kill, right? They end up getting a hook on a Fate, but not the kill. After that, I think, yeah, you got to switch off of it.
Hunter, though, they do identify that the Dragons play close and play aggressive early.
There's Teru.
Look at him. Hard to see. He's below Big L's right now. That's a fantastic dive. How do 4 Dragons players just materialize on Shy's front doorstep?
I mean, poor Shy. You see everybody else from the Spark kind of like pushed up. Nobody there to be able to help him out.
Have you heard the good word of our Lord and Savior, coordination?
I mean, no, it's there for the Spark sometimes. Sometimes it's not. Now they got to be careful as well, like kind of going on these flanks constantly with the Kiriko, like because eventually Shanghai is going to figure it out, right? They can just pressure on the other side. Oh.
That's going to happen, right?
Huge shot there.
There's just a lot of volatility that is offered to you by having a Sojourn on your side of the map. The Dragons, though, in fairness, rather undeterred by this turn of events.
Well, there is no Lucio to disengage right now for the Dragons. So I think if you're the Spark, you need to push the advantage. Like, this is where they cannot hightail it out of there and get all healed up. But you pretty much conceded that advantage at this point.
Shy would normally like to catch Fate with a headshot before he touches down there, but the angle was too sharp for him to line up, and he didn't know where Fate would be coming from. So Fate gets the Primal Rage. Shy going to try and ignore the Winston as much as possible and try and connect a headshot, but there's just a churning massive bodies here on the top of Big L, making it very hard to pick out any individuals. Okay, sound barriers now come out from both sides here. We've seen both Kitsune rushes so far. Gushui's Primal Rage, what does it yield for the Spark? It doesn't have to yield anything.
That was Flutter's Death Blossom as well. He doesn't even actually get through the animation. Like, the animation doesn't even, like, start as he gets taken out. So, Izayaki will get a kill here on the exit, so to speak. But this should be the Spark taking this first checkpoint, and they hold on to their Death Blossom.
I think an autopsy might have revealed a couple of kunai in the cranium of Flatter there as he tried to go for the Death Blossom. He eats a ton of damage, and Teru was involved in that elimination via the kill feed. So, great work to shut down the Reaper and that Death Blossom as Fletter was trying to make a late fight gambit to keep his team in it.
And you get Lip off of this high ground. So good on the Sojourn that like you need to dislodge him from these types of positions because that's where he can really start to take over the
Or you take the fight somewhere that's outside of his purview, right? I think that's what the Spark are hoping to do by fighting over that Mega Room, but they're a little bit scared about a Reaper being up close and just blowing Gushui up.
And also, like, they're trying to bait Gushui in, right? Like, the Swift Step's gone there, but if he would have dove in, like, the trying to dash there from the Sojourn with the jump is still in play, where Lip would have been able to just get away. So.
And they did, they do bait him. He goes into the saloon, I guess, an offer of a cold beverage and companionship, that's luring him into close quarters where the Dragons just drop that Kiriko ultimate and run rough shot over the Spark.
So, get shot at the end. Ooh, Alfie's. It looks like a little bit of a chase, but yeah, just going to make it out there with that Wraith form. But a little bit of an advantage here for the Spark, right? Kitsune Rush in Death Blossom available. Nothing else, but I think before you start to use his ultimates, you got to make sure you kind of get in Lip's face because that Death Blossom comes down, he's just going to hit I mean, that is a stationary character. He's just going to land a headshot on.
There's a sense that the Dragons are starting to get a feel for this matchup, Matthew. A feel for the tempo the Spark are drumming out. Shy just going down at the start of the fight is very scary, but like you mentioned, Lip's positioning here puts him in a great spot to spot targets and easy to pick people up, especially Shy who want to play away from the main peloton of his team.
And Shanghai's not going to fall for this, right? Like, the Spark go inside of the saloon and like, oh yeah, we're up a player, let's go in. But they know that Alfie has the Death Blossom. He's been holding on to it for ages.
Yushue trying to dive here on Lip. A lot of pressure on Lip, but he's able to find a pocket to work from. Lee Jae-gon gets picked off. I think that railgun might have been meant for Lip, but Alfie is going to be able to follow up at the end of it anyway. Yushue to the high ground. Any chance for Izayaki to dash away, and he'll take it. So he does. Disappears in a puff of Sakura Blossoms. And here comes the Spark, though. Finally getting back into control. Looking a little less lethal, though, against the Dragons, who are now more acclimated to this push and pull between these dive comps.
Again, interesting. Alpha will teleport towards the low ground there. So Gushwei has the primal up on top, so maybe Alpha can kind of catch one, right? As they're going to try and probably push for this high ground. And Alpha can get a kill from underneath.
Disrupt the shot in the choke. Always a tough one to fight through. Slow you up, but the Dragons able to get a 5-player sound barrier. Gushwei for the high ground denies it from much of the Dragons. Knocking people away with primal. And Lip goes down to Shy. It's going to be another notch in the belt for the Sojourn from the Spark, and a key kill to find, but Fate is able to double up and get the trade at the very least. Fled is waiting for people to drop down for a moment like this. Here's your Death Blossom as Teru can't quite get away, and Super Rich is pinned to the woodwork at the top of the saloon. The Dragons are putting it together right now, and the Spark are running out of time.
Yeah, as the Dragons have seemed to figure it out here on this point B defense. You know, mixing the right kind of times of aggression with knowing when to just not fall for some of the traps laid by the Spark, as Spark one last attempt here to get the payload moving.
9 seconds left, but it's Lee Jae-gon who gets a little caught here. Fate has the double back as the numbers advantage starting to turn against the Shanghai Dragons. And they get the touch. There's no one in the vicinity either. How do the Dragons slow this down? Couple players maybe coming off respawn can slow this up, but 2 on the card for that time. Gives it a huge boost. Fleder may have to double back and face the music, and by music I mean the licking tendrils of the Tesla cannon. Gushwei finds Fleder now, wants to chase him down, gives him a tase for good luck. And Izayaki has to Suzu himself to stay alive with the Dragons. A key vulnerability exposed there, and the Spark get it over the line.
Yeah, just like I was saying that where they were like, oh yeah, they've done a great job, knowing when to not fall into some of the traps as they go in deep there to try and get the kill and finish off this map in their favor, Shanghai. And they end up having 2 players drop, and then Gushwei is able to make it all the way around towards that payload. Now the cart's still moving.
Shy a little low there. Suffering some early pressure in this fight, but that card is on the move, and here comes the Kitsune Rush. Pitter-patter, a little wolf feet, fox feet rather. And the Sparker hustled forward, and now going to pick Lee Jae-gon off as he tries to retreat. Good use that ultimate, gives him the fight win. Sound barrier on the horizon as well if the Spark want to double down here. But so far, looks like they've paved the way.
Yeah, and they got to get close to those spawn doors here, Mitch. They finished in OT. The Spark trying to finish with some time on the clock. They have to be pretty much perfect from here on out. No mistakes can be made. Alfie up on the high ground.
That's a mistake!
And then huge pick-off.
Blossom. How does that one smell? Dragons straight up in their spawn door there, and they are denied any access to the rest of the map. And the card is going to get home.
Finish with time. Oh, that is massive. So they finish with that time. They'll have a little bit of an advantage, 1 minute and 16. But still giving themselves a chance to finish this one off here. Have a little bit more time than the Dragons. That's massive.
In fairness, that 15 seconds, Matt, that disappears in a puff of smoke very quickly, especially if a defending team is able to play forward, right? For all intents and purposes, I'm inclined to put these 2 teams on even footing in terms of what their aspirations should be in this overtime.
Yeah, I mean, for a second there, it didn't even look like they were going to even be able to finish the map, right? With the way the Spark were looking. I think that extra bit of time, depending on where this offense ends, right? The Dragons could be big, right? Like if let's say the Dragons end on the first corner, that little bit of extra time is 2 spawns, right, so to speak. So in theory, you're able to take fights a little bit faster and maybe have a little bit more of a chance to brawl it out in an overtime scenario. Depending on how far it gets, though. You see, it's whole DP up to the high quad.
So cheeky. So hard to know where he's coming from, too.
Yeah.
Alfie's had a great map so far, Matt. 15 final blows, 9 deaths. He's leading his team in those final blows. Shy just behind at 14. DPS putting out numbers here for the Spark, especially in the second half of that previous round. So the Dragons, it's not a close defense for the Spark here.
This feels like a battle of the Sojourns here in OT, with how much time is on the clock.
I don't know.
And kind of the stakes. Really a Shy versus Lit matchup to end this map.
It's fully charged, but look at his patience, waiting on the shot. And there it is, enough damage on Teru by the looks of things to just explode that Kiriko. Where's he healing now, Hangzhou?
If you're the Spark, what do you decide to do here? You have to. They're gonna back up and probably decide to take just one final fight before this checkpoint A. As Shy comes out, tries to just farm some damage. Just be so careful. Flip right around the corner. Everybody up here.
Damage control for the Spark. If they can end things here, it's very doable. They have to double down and have a strong showing in this fight. No, and that's a great start. Lip is spelled already. Shy finds the perfect pick. Absolutely mount that one over the mantle. And the Hangzhou Spark put the Dragons to bed here, setting themselves up for a win condition. By no means a sure thing, but it's definitely possible now.
It is very possible here for the Spark to win this series. I mean, a 3-0 over the Dragons. I think you could have predicted them to win, but 3-0 is a crazy scenario. But I mean, what with where the card is, Mitch? You're a depending on where they decide to play, right? Like, can you afford to play close up here if you're the Shanghai Dragons, like they did, like inside of the truck? I think you probably have to play the corner, right?
I mean, that's the question. Do you get a second fight if you do that? Or
right, and if you do play the corner, you may not get a second fight, especially if, let's say you kind of have the Sojourn take out the Lucio or the Krigo up on the high ground, right?
So what do you do?
There's probably not a second fight. I actually think you probably, even though it's not great, probably have to play the corner. I think you can kind of just play this 50-50 game at the corner for a little bit and dwindle some of the clock to where I think it's just too risky. Like, we've already seen these Spark, right? They played the Roadhog here at the start. They tried to get like a hook and a pick really quick. Like, you don't know what they're going to do, right? Are they going to play, you know, are they going to Sonic this and then hook? Like, is there some other types of shenanigans? But Shanghai, they're going to go for this up close. So up close, even if you lose this first fight, you're going to get a second one, right?
All right. Lip takes a glancing blow early. You saw the health bar knocked down to half. Gushware wants to be pretty expedient about this. Pressured by Reaper early, back to the safety, the high ground. They get faked! But that's huge. The Winston is down. Super Rich able to run him down with the help of Shy. It is traded back. Teru is missing, but you need the damage, not so much the healing right now when you have the advantage in the fight and you want to push it, and so the Spark do. Flatter, Suzu for a moment. Izayaki falls right in the crosshairs. And there's plenty of time for the Spark to have all 5 players ready for this next fight.
Yeah, you're gonna get on top of Big Earls. You're gonna get control of the gas station here, where players are gonna be walking around this corner, right? You're gonna have that disruptor shot up on the high ground.
What could Shy do here? Or is it gonna be Lip that breaks the deadlock?
Has to be so careful.
Teru playing passively as well, not going for those wild flanks nearly so much, seeing Shy under pressure from Fate. He tops him up briefly. Both Winston bubbles used here. Plenty of charge for the Sojourn players, and we're sitting here waiting for an explosive pick that could open this right up. Lip being very cagey, not offering much of himself behind the sign of Big Earls at all. Shy forced to reload there. Fate redirected in midair. Teru! It's Teru to find the pick on Izayaki! The Kunais might be paving the way, but Fate's able to take Shy down. Alfie is in there though, and he got a Death Blossom. There's no coming back from that. The Shanghai Dragons sent careening into the lower bracket. It's a clean 3-0 for the Hangzhou Spark.
And that is like best case scenario for the Spark, how they could possibly look and ascend to the levels that you think with the talent on this team. That is like a perfect series from this team, and you see kind of like how excited they are to end up winning this one. Massive underdogs here against the Dragons, and they take it 3-0. I tell you what, I would not want to see this team in the winner bracket, you know, with how, no, I think like Shy, you know, you probably favor him against like just about any other Sojourn in the league at times, right? And then Gushway on the Winston. I mean, especially with the way Teru was playing the Kiriko, right? Like going on these flanks and being able to find these early pickoffs. That is a dangerous team in the Hangzhou Spark.
Such a dominant showing, especially over the first couple of maps. The Dragons are an elite team and they're able to begin to adapt, but it's not quick enough, it's too late. And by the time we get down to the meat and potatoes of Route 66, they get cut down. And Teru impishly going for these flanking plays. I even outright stated that he looked like he was playing more safe, more passive at the start of that last fight. I guess I was wrong. It wasn't a headshot kill, right, off that kunai, but still an elimination on the enemy Kiriko. That's what Teru adds to your team. Guy who moonlighted as a DPS player for quite some time and very legitimately took games over on his own on a weaker Vancouver Titans. Such an impressive showing for him and a true weapon at flex support to be going forward with.
And what about the Dragons? They come in as the 5th seed, right? Top 4 overall seeds get a bye. You know, you're one spot off of not even being in this match, and you end up losing it 3-0. Now you go down to if you're trying to make it back to the finals here, if you're the Shanghai Dragons, you literally have the longest road to get there. It is going to have to be an epic run back.
You're right, Matt. No more second chances for our reigning Overwatch League champions. They fight for survival in the lower bracket from here on out. Let's talk player of the match here, Matthew. It's going to be the one, the only, the primal blade, Gushui. Much harder for him to get value out of the the primal rage on that last map of Route 66, but man, when the map allows for him to corner players in rooms like this, he's coming out with a disgusting, disordinate, disproportionate amount of kills.
It is so good to see Gushui on the Winston, man. You think back to like Overwatch World Cup, you know, previous iterations of the Hangzhou
2019.
Like this is his thing, man. Like he just has the mechanics on Winston nailed down so good that he's able to come in and take over a series here against the Shanghai Dragons, where you looked at these two teams and you're like, hey, like how is Fate going to play this aggressive style of play that it looks like this meta is dictating? And he was not able to play at that same pace with that same level of aggression as Gushui, and Gushui able to come up. Look at that primal rage kills per 10 minutes. I mean, 3. I mean, that is a high number for that ult.
And I want to remind you, something I touched on at the top of the game. Gushui came into this series with the lowest number of deaths per 10 at 4.3. So he's coming well in under his average. Now, it's a different metagame, but it's one that still features Reaper. So the fact that he's able to stay alive as long as he does is absurd. Incredible play for the Spark, who now really, I mean, okay, sure, mate, you get less of Alpha Yi maybe showing a bit more of his hero pool here, right? I think if you're consigned to that Reaper duty, you're definitely expected to be you know, having consistent output without these sort of gigantic peaks. But their team is really well suited for this metagame. The time is right for the Hangzhou Spark to make a deep run here, Matt. I don't want to be picking them in this upper bracket at all. If I'm the Glads, I might be stuck with them at this stage.
Ugh. Yeah, I mean, I would not want to be picking that team to go up against because they're so dangerous because of the individual skill that each of those players has. And, you know, obviously you see when the teamwork kind of comes together and, you know, that they hit some of their highest of highs, like how scary they can be. I'll also say, like, if you're the Dragons, like, what is the outlook now? I mean, you end up losing 3-0 to the 12th seed, although they don't look like a 12th seed in this kind of version of the meta. And now you're down there having to battle through all of those teams through the rest of the week. You put yourself in such a terrible scenario here.
You said it yourself. What does this team look like if Lip isn't putting this insane Sojourn performance on the table? If you're a Dragons player or fan, you'd better hope you don't find out. Stick around, everybody. More playoff action coming at you live from the Anaheim Convention Center as our first day of Overwatch League Playoffs for 2022 kicks off with a bang. It's been great so far, and there's plenty more goodness to come.
The Overwatch League is brought to you by Butterfinger. Crispity, crunchity, peanut buttery. No one lays a finger on your Butterfinger.
welcome back to our game break. We're now joined by Gu Shui from the Hangzhou Spark. So first of all, of course, congratulations to your victory against the Shanghai Dragons. And yeah, let's dive right in there, because you and your team, you were considered the underdog heading into this match, but not just into this match. I dare say into the entirety of the playoffs as well. Do you think that label is still justified?
无论是今天这场比赛，还是今年的整个季后赛阶段，杭州闪电队都是不太被外界看好的一支队伍。对此，你有什么要说的吗？
我觉得我们不被看好是蛮正常的嘛，因为我们也是季后赛的第12个队伍，最后一个种子，成绩最不好的。包括前两阶段我们的成绩也是还有很多不好。但是呢，我觉得我们来到洛杉矶之后呢，虽然前几天的大家状态也不好，包括训练赛什么的也是蛮惨的，但是这几天。 后面几天下来，我觉得我们在对阵训练赛上面，包括对西部队伍的训练赛上面，我觉得我们成长了很多，所以这些成长让我们赢得了今天的比赛。
I think it's quite natural that people think that we are underdog because we didn't do well in the previous 2 stages. However, after coming to LA, we also in the beginning of the training, we didn't do quite well on screens, but for days we have made progress and we have become better. Yeah, and that's it.
All right, well, on that note, I wanted to ask you guys, it's a good meta for you, Gu Shui and Winston. Do you think this is a good meta? And for that reason, do you think you have a good chance of making it deep in the playoffs?
你认为目前季后赛这个版本，就是有温斯顿这个版本，对你们队伍来说是不是一个有利的版本？以及你是否有信心在季后赛期间走得更远？
目前来说的话，我觉得这版本对我们蛮有利的吧。首先，我觉得我们每个人玩的英雄都是自己比较有自信、很擅长的英雄，比如像我的温斯顿啊，像赛的手剑啊，包括退路的物质啊，我们都是对自己很有自信的一些英雄。所以我觉得这个季后赛，我觉得应该能走得蛮远的吧。
Yes, we do think it's a good meta for our team because most of our players are playing the heroes that they are good at and they have confidence in. For example, I'm playing Winston and Shai is playing Sojourn and Teru is playing Kiriko. So I do think that we will go further in these playoffs.
Right on. Thank you so much, guys. Best of luck in your next match. And we are now going to dissect this match we just saw. 3-0 for the Spark. Not really a result that any of us expected, but let's be real, everyone at home. I think most of your brackets are busted.
We're in trouble.
I do not think that there is more than, well, maybe 5% out there who still have a perfect bracket. There's no way.
There's no one who tweets at us just like, you guys were wrong. Well, we're all wrong.
We're all wrong
was
together.
right.
Exactly. So I feel like if everyone is wrong at the same time, then we're kind of all correct.
This sounds like denial at the highest form.
It is, and I'm very good at it too. However, I do want to talk about the match and how the Spark got it done. There were so many standout performances by individuals and the team as a whole, of course.
Yeah, and it's interesting hearing from Gu Shui, as he just said, they are on their comfort heroes. This should be a very good meta for that, and they showed that in this match. Gu Shui back into prime 2019 Winston form, just creating so much space. We talked about it in the last game break about how important it is to dictate the flow of the game, and Gu Shui does that perfectly, and that really enables Alpha Yi and Shai to just get in there and get picks. And Shai on the Sojourn doing what we know he can do on land once again.
Yeah, I think this is really what you're able to see as well when you have a Winston that trusts his Kiriko as well. Diving in, utilizing the invulnerability, of course, to protect the Winston and really make Gu Shui feel comfortable. Like, just compare the proactiveness of Gu Shui, being able to dive in, being able to be aggressive and confident, without feeling like you have to steer clear of the action, stay away from the Reapers, because you know that the healing is going to be there. Also, the primal blade mechanics. Gu Shui is back in many ways. He's playing some of the best Overwatch he's done since 2019 World Cup. And I mean, what an amazing story for this guy. I think we'd all agree that so far this year, he's had a bit of a down year. Gu Shui hadn't looked like the best tank.